you know, the authenticity of the whole film makes me think that it's kind of autobiographical.
Mhm.
Is it?
Yeah, sure. More so than I expected it was going to be. It certainly is autobiographical at the micro level, in that there's a character in there, that had a very similar experience, and that a lot of Generation X kids had, which was, being like latchkey kids, divorces, and moving around a bit, and single working mom, and I had all those things, and so it was very autobiographical in the sort of micro way, and also to me autobiographical in the macro way generationally. It's like kind of a portrait of Generation X at that time, and it's sort of my kind of interpretation and my understanding of my generation, and what it means to other people.
So Jeff, from all the stories you could have done, why did you decide to explore coming of age for your first film as a director?
Yeah. um it's well, I knew the film was going to be smaller. I knew there wasn't going to be a huge budget, and I think when you're making a film, and you're making your first film, um, being conceptual in some way is of importance. It doesn't mean you have to be high concept, it just means you have to be conceptual, and in a way, this was kind of high concept in that it was low concept. It was about kids waiting. It's theatrical in a way. It's, the inspirations are, there's certainly wonderful film directors, and they're also, theater writers. Our Town was an influence. Waiting for Godot is an influence. And in addition to, like, Lucas Moodysson, a great director, and Andrea Arnold, and just a bunch of different influences. And I think what I wanted to do is I wanted to make a film about my generation, and I wanted to explore it, um, and do it in a way that was makeable, and I knew it was going to be limited. And so it's just something that has been on my conscience and in the back of my mind for many, many years. And it just felt like it was one of those, a lot of like artists and writers, will say there are things that they want to do and things that they have to do, and I think, like, even if one time in your life you have something in the have to do column, then you're lucky. And this felt like that for me.
I was wondering, for me, the gate to the club, the door to the club, is like a metaphorical thing, like it's a gate to adulthood, but only some of them are accepted there because they're too young. So I love that they're all waiting. We all waited for we don't know what when we were that age. So I think you reflected really well that generation. And so yeah, can you comment a little on the gate, the club, and
Yeah,
going
absolutely. I
to
mean,
the other side?
yeah, absolutely. It's it's pretty clear that the club represents something else, and so what was going on inside the club was not of importance to me, and but to be honest, what was going inside that club wasn't that great, and I think that in a generational way, when I think about the future at that time for Generation X, um, you know, basically the sort of represents the future in a way, and it's like, okay, this is where we're going. This is what's being built for us. This is what we're getting ourselves into a world of baby boomers, into a world of the me generation. And that's what we're going to have to live in, and like it or not, and I think a character at the end that is heading in says there's really nothing else to do, and when you were that age, and you just kind of you followed the masses, to adulthood, really. And so the club basically was a representation of a baby boomer future, which wasn't that great, you know.
How is the? I mean, I think there's a silver lining within the pandemic, which is a lot of independent films have more room to be recognized and to be watched, because we're not invaded by big budget Hollywood movies right now with all
Mhm.
the, that machinery. How do you see the pandemic as a filmmaker? And I guess the film, well, did festivals and now is going streaming, right? In
Yeah, it's
America?
it's been a really interesting journey. We went to a few film festivals. We were at the Liverpool Film Festival, and last week where we won Best Feature and Film of the Festival, which was really great. And right before that, we were at the Florida Film Festival, and it won the Special Jury Prize. And so, we've been to very few festivals. We've done well. Um, and the plan was, of course, that this movie was going to be released in May, and it was going to be a small release in New York and LA. And that was very exciting. It's very exciting to think your film is going to be in a theater, and then everything happened and things didn't go the way everyone else thought they wanted them to go. And it was a bummer for a while. And then, like you said, this pandemic has been, for films, for independent films, it's been a curse and a blessing. You're right that it opens up the landscape. And yes, now in theory, if a studio movie's opening up on VOD and your movie's opening up on VOD, then there's a certain, parity there. There's a certain, the playing field is level. The difference is, like, you have $3,000 to promote your film and they have 30 million. And so, there is that. But what it does do, our film opens on Friday, November 6th um, you know at Alamo Draft House. It's a great theater chain, and they have a virtual theater that, so you could watch the film on your TVs and online starting on Friday. And so what's really been great about this is it's more of a gauntlet where you do the festivals, you hope you get good reviews, and you hope you do well in the festivals. And we were lucky to do that, and we got really wonderful reviews, and those reviews pushed us to get to the next stage, where, places like Lemley Theaters, places like Alamo Draft House, where they were like, hey, your movie's really good. Let's do it in our theaters, like our virtual theaters, not their real theaters,
Yeah.
no one's going to those. And then all of a sudden, like, you get that opportunity. And then, like, I think the reviews for this release started coming out today, and they were great. Someone said it was in their top 3 movies of the year. So, they're really wonderful. And so that gets, but they're not the huge places like the New York Times or the LA Times. And because there's another gauntlet to go through to get to that. And so, once we open on Friday, it's going to be in Lemley theaters, virtual theaters, and it's going to be in Alamo Drafthouse virtual theaters. And then after a month, on December 1st, it goes to Amazon Prime and iTunes and VOD. And so by then, during the month of November, we think that it can get a little more sort of momentum, and then these places can't ignore it and they have to review it. And so to the brief answer to your question is that you get to have this, you get to have a longer period of time to allow your movie to sort of latch on. If it opens in a couple small theaters, it will, no matter how good it is, it'll do $300 a screen, and then it'll be gone in a week, and that will be it. And so this has made things different, and I think we're doing a pretty good job in taking advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with the reviews. How do you feel when they compare your film to Breakfast Club and Dazed and Confused? That is, this film is going to become like an icon for certain, the genre.
Man, it's. Who doesn't want to be compared to to that? I grew up. I grew up with John Hughes. I've watched, Rick Linklater's films my whole life. I don't know. What else can you say? It's a pretty amazing thing to read, so, hopefully people will respond to it and enjoy it. I hope so.
Do you think this film will be watched by teenagers who are portrayed in the movie, like or their parents, or everybody?
I mean, the easy answer is to say everybody. It's like we've been really, it's a film about Generation X, um, and just by chance, by now that it's gotten made, and my friends and everyone, a lot of Generation X kids are, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, so, that age. And so far, the movie has been, teenagers have really responded to it. And it's just, it's a different time then. And the most obvious reason is that there's no technology. And when, 13-year-old kids are hanging out with each other, then they had to talk to each other, and it couldn't be made today, that film, because everyone would be looking at their phones, and and they just like, I mean, kids like looking at other kids. They've really liked it. And again, of course, like, I think Generation X will really respond to it. It's not a nostalgia movie. It's not, big hits from the 80s and, in the background, and thank God. And, you know, and so we're just hoping that it'll sort of latch on, and we'll see what happens.